Hello, my name is Alina Ploaie. I'm a professor for the course related to European Neighbourhood Partnership Instrument programs and the European Neighbourhood Instrument programs for the current programming period. I'm also a professor within the Center of European Studies, where I teach a course for the Master of Regional Development programs, and I'm a counselor within the Ministry of Development, Public Works and Administration, Romania, working in a managing authority for a cross-border cooperation program. I was involved also as a counselor for more than 2 years in the trilateral program, ENPI program, Romania, Ukraine, Republic of Moldova. I also have experience as a first level controller, so I control also the cross-border cooperation funds and cross-border cooperation projects. And I can share information, practical information in this field of ENPI and ENI programs, as I have more than 14 years of experience in managing and controlling EU funds for cross-border cooperation programs. Today I will present you in detail information about the cross-border cooperation programs, and I would like to start my presentation. So for this last unit of the course, we will learn about the evolution of ENPI, ENI joint operational programs. And not only this, but also I want to share that these programs were developed throughout many years, and they just changed and developed according to the needs of the partner states that are at the external borders of the European Union, and of course having in mind that also the European Union changed the composition by adding new member states. Of course, during the years, the borders, the external borders of the European Union changed, and that is why every time there was the need to improve and to extend also this type of instruments that were meant, of course, to help the countries that are somehow also part of development of the project and of the European Union Club itself. So today I will present you the neighborhood programs that were the cross-border cooperation programs dedicated for the period 2004-2006. These programs were mainly funded from the FAR funds. Then I want to present you this new instrument that was dedicated only for the European Neighbourhood Policy, and it was initially called European Neighbourhood Policy Instrument. Then we have the new instrument dedicated for this current programming period 2014-2020, and of course just an overview in the end about the program bodies that you normally can find in on European Neighbourhood Instrument Program, and of course information that are related to the mandatory cooperation criteria. Okay, so if beginning with the period 2004-2006, this need of having a neighborhood program appeared because, of course, there were a lot of, let's say, needs to be met at the borders and for the citizens that are in the bordering regions. And I'm sure you already know from the other units that, a lot of development, economic and social development was, let's say, produced or envisaged throughout these years. But actually, this need was way long before envisaged and underlined, and that is why these neighborhood programs were born, dedicating specifically for the border regions. So these are considered as a radical step forward in cooperation. They were based, let's say, on the Interreg and ENPCBC program. They are joint programs with joint management structures, and I will present in the end the exact structure of one program. And then, of course, the funding allocation could be from the internal, but also from external instruments. There are also some objectives like promoting sustainable economic and social development in the border areas, working together to address common challenges, and of course, ensuring efficient and secure borders, and promotion and supporting the people-to-people type of actions. We have the approach to be considered to have this concept of a joint program. That means a member state should participate in this type of programs, and of course the partner states. Included these neighborhood programs is included Interreg or ENPCBC funds, and include also the involved countries as equal partners. Depending on the decisions at program level, single call for proposals, that means at the level of one program, one call for application for call for projects was launched, and then depending on the evolution of the implementing phase of the projects, of course, new projects could be, let's say, contracted from the reserve list. But actually, depending on each type of program, these decisions were taken at the level of that program structures. Okay, there are some key elements that means that they are prepared in border areas, or local ownership should be also underlined, and that means when you consider the key elements that are prepared, this type of programs and projects are prepared in the border areas. That means the partnership principle is and must be addressed. Also the strategic approach, the multi-annual programming, and of course a joint selection of projects. Then the local ownership means that wider involvement of public bodies or public institutions, and not only public bodies, but also maybe NGOs or other type of private institution could be also involved in the management and implementation of such a program. Then better planning, then more certainty, then genuine cross-border nature, and local decisions. As a timeline, of course, the need, let's say, for a ENPI, a special dedicated instrument for the European Neighbourhood Policy, let's say, was created, was developed, this need. And of course, we had a special regulation dedicated to this instrument and an implementing regulation. And you can find information in the, let's say, bibliography or other resources, you know, where you can find more information in the text of this unit. You can find there more resources, including this regulation I'm speaking right now. And the need for let's say, a special dedicated regulation for this instrument designed specifically for the European Neighbourhood Policy was, let's say, envisaged in March 2003 with a wider Europe communication where was underlined the importance of avoiding new dividing lines. Then in July 2003, it was another document issued by the European Commission that was called Paving the Way for a New Neighbourhood Instrument, with a single regulation for CBC at the external borders. Then, of course, almost a year after the first initiative, the European Neighbourhood Policy Strategy paper was created, and the ENPI was dedicated specifically for the European Neighbourhood Policy, and was seen in first as a complementary tool and instrument, not to replace the previous instruments like MEDA and TACHIS. Okay, so the European Neighbourhood and Partnership Instrument, as you can see, we have a clear distinction between the ENPI South and ENPI East. ENPI South was dedicated for countries like Algeria, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco, the occupied Palestinian territory, Syria, and Tunisia. And ENPI East was dedicated specifically for countries as following: Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, and Russia in the first phase. Okay, and you here can see the map of the countries involved, and of course this ENPCBC cooperation area for the programming period, the previous programming period, 2007-2013. So many countries were involved, and were targeted to be, direct support for the European Union, because a clear cooperation with the neighbors and external neighbors, mainly because we have also the internal borders, and means cooperation could be developed also between two member states, and that means this the funds are specifically dedicated for the member state participating in a cooperation program, but they were financed under the Interreg initiative, not ENPI or ENI program. The objectives and priorities for the European Neighbourhood and Partnership Instruments, we have some strategic objectives like supporting democratic transition and promoting human rights, assisting transitions toward a market economy, promoting sustainable development and policies of common interest like anti-terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, conflict resolution, and the rule of internal law. There were some distinct axes for cooperation, like implementation of a strengthened dialogue on priority multi-sector reforms, approximation of legislation, institutional support, or depending some strict targeted objectives of the UN's Millennium Development Goals. Of course, as I told you before, this new instrument was created to add new elements in comparison with the previous TACHIS, CBC, and MEDA funds. That means these new elements are cross-border cooperation, under which the ENPI finances joint programs, bringing together regions of the member states and partner countries sharing a common border. So in each a joint operational program funded in the framework of ENPI, we will find a member state and one or more partner states. A governance facility which provides resources to creative partners which have shown the will to carry forward essential reforms related to improving good governance. Another instrument was a twinning instrument that was created specifically for cooperation between institutions in the member state or the partner state. And that means, experts could go in the partner country and help the other institutions in a similar field of activity, to improve the procedures, to improve the activity in general. I also was involved in a twinning project in Republic of Macedonia in 2016-2017, and for me also was a great experience. And not only that, after 5 weeks of involvement in that project, I was very happy and delighted that I could sustain and I could support the activity of a similar institution like the one that I'm having my activity in Romania, but actually was, I was happy that I could have a lot of good results there. And then we have also the TAIEX, and the TAIEX peer-to-peer is called right now this instrument, where of course there are short missions where also experts from the member states could participate in other countries to help, delivering some trainings or other facilities. Then we have the ENPI cross-border cooperations. Of course, this at first the ENPCBC budget was 930, almost 30 million euro. And this money was spent in 3 types of programs: the land border programs that represented, and these funds were allocated to land border programs in percentage of 74%. Then the sea basin programs like the Black Sea CBC program, one of them 23%, and then the sea crossing programs 3%. But if we consider a project definition, the joint programs bringing together regions of the EU member states and partner countries sharing a common border, we can find 2 types of programs: bilateral programs covering a common land border. As I told you, the program where I also was having my activity in this CBC area at first was the trilateral program, Romania, Ukraine, Republic of Moldova, that's now in the current programming period 2014-2020 is a bilateral program. That means Romania, Ukraine, and Romania, Moldova, the ENI program Romania, Ukraine, and the ENI program Romania, Moldova. And so a trilateral program now was decided to become bilateral program covering, this common land borders. Then we have multilateral programs covering a sea basin like the Black Sea Basin, let's say, that has a lot of countries. As you can see, I included in my in the unit, in the text of the unit, a case study with information about the Black Sea CBC program. And the eligibility in general for the ENPI cross-border cooperation programs are decentralized institutions and entities in partners, countries and regions, mixed organizations, international and regional organizations, international financial institutions, European institutions and agencies, or of course NGOs. The financial aspects of this instrument. So from the total budget of more than 11 billion euros, the financial total allocation was around 950 million euros, and the actions financed or could be financed from this ENPI fund, where the actions were dedicated to more equitable development, regulatory trade and reforms, liberalization of certain sectors, justice and home affairs, energy, transport, information society, environmental sustainability, research and innovation, of course, and represent an increase of more than 32% in real terms compared with the amount available over the period 2000-2006 dedicated for MEDA and TACHI's program. Okay, so we have this, you can see the total allocation, and 95% was dedicated for national multi-country programs and 5% for cross-border cooperation programs. The ENPI cross-border cooperation programs for the programming period 2007-2013 were these, as mentioned here, the let's say we can see in this list the Romania, Ukraine, Republic of Moldova program, quadrilateral program, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine, or Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, trilateral program, or bilateral programs like Italy, Tunisia. And of course, we have these sea basin programs, Black Sea, CBC, Mediterranean Sea, Baltic Sea region. So we have a lot of programs, and you can see here also the allocation per each program, having these short versions, the naming of each program that we see in the previous table. And the main fields of cooperation within the Eastern partners were like transport, energy, sustainable management of natural resources, border and migration management, fight against transnational organized crime and customs, people-to-people activities, or even elimination of landmines, explosive remnants of war, small arms, and light weapons. Regarding the sector analysis, we can see that a lot of money were dedicated to sustainable development. This was, let's say, the primary focus of the ENPCBC programs. Then actions to address the common challenges, then people-to-people actions. People-to-people means that there are small projects in value, but actually many institutions could be involved from both partner states and member states, and of course a lot of events and conferences or musical festivals or other type of cultural activities could be organized in the framework of these people-to-people activities and actions. And of course, some small amount were also dedicated, was also dedicated to efficient and secure borders. Okay, so as they were mentioned in the strategy paper, these key objectives were promoting sustainable development in regions on both sides of common borders, then working together through joint actions to address the common challenges, ensuring efficient and secure borders through joint actions, promoting local cross-border people-to-people type of actions. I included also the case study for the quadrilateral program, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine. And you can see that from the level of the participation, most of the lead applicants were from the EU member states. And I advise you, if you are going to be a potential applicant in one of these programs, I advise you, if you don't have any piece of any experience at all, it is better to apply as a partner within a cross-border cooperation program, and to have a lead partner, an institution that has already implemented another previous project, and just learn from themselves. And then next time when we apply as a project beneficiary, you can be yourself also a lead partner, but it's easier to see the procedures, to learn the procedure and the eligibility of each cost, and how to draft the progress reports and how to to implement the project and to see the risks that can appear throughout the implementation period of one project from more experienced, let's say, project partners. And that is why it is advisable at first to be engaged in a cross-border cooperation project together with some more experienced institutions as lead partner or normal project partners. And of course, if you don't have, if you are just two institutions or two NGOs that do not have experience at all, it's not a problem. You can still apply, but try to see all the provisions from the guidelines of applicants, try to analyze very well the contents of these documents, try to see all the requirements from the very beginning, because if you miss information, you may have some errors and non-eligible expenditure due to not knowing all the rules and procedures. So it is better, to be well prepared. And if you have any questions, feel free to address to the joint secretariats, to the national authority, to the managing authority, because all the institutions are here just to help the beneficiaries in the implementation of the project, and of course to have a higher absorption rate. For this quadrilateral program, the themes of intervention were security, environment, social development, and economic development. And of course, a lot of actions, and average duration of the call for proposal were from launch to the award, all the phases related to submission of application form, then analysis, assessment, and selection of the projects, and then signature of a contract. This is, a long period of time, usually around 12 months. From the award to the last contract, the contracting period can take also around 2 years, or even more if, let's say, you are on the reserve list, and of course some economies are made available, and the managing authority will contact you and ask you, okay, are you still interested in implementing the project? And of course that could last even 2 years, no time to another project to be finished. Now I will share you a short movie regarding the some projects finished and the results of the projects implementing in the framework of the joint operational program Romania, Ukraine, Republic of Moldova for the previous programming period.
Цей проект завдяки ЄС, так, це перший для міста, який єсівський.
Orice bănuț venit din afară, și nu numai din afară, e un pas înainte.
Sigur, am început cu minus, pe urmă la zero, dar acum încetișor creștem.
La noi în Țarichioi, numai cine nu vrea să muncească nu găsește de lucru.
Business-ul nu are vârstă.
Am pus bazele, chiar semințele economiei sociale în Republica Moldova.
Aici este casa mea, aici este copilul meu, aici este tot. Aici este viața mea.
Toți suntem trecători în viața asta.
Îmi plac foarte mult oamenii și pentru că îmi plac foarte mult m-am gândit că trebuie să fac ceva concret.
Pentru că de frumos avem nevoie toți.
Граница – это что-то выдуманное. Между людьми не может быть границы.
Urgența n-are frontiera și n-are limită.
Frontiera ne separă, frontiera ne unește, frontiera am creat-o noi.
We do not feel that we are on the edge of the border of the country, but we feel that we are like the gates for the other person.
Pentru mine este o fericire să mă fi născut la frontieră.
I hope that you enjoyed that short movie. You can find it also a link to an hour movie with all the projects that were implemented, or most of the projects that were implemented in the period 2007-2013 for the joint operational program Romania, Ukraine, Moldova. In the unit, in the text of the unit, you can find there the link with this extended version of this movie. And of course, there you can see that even if you know that cross-border projects are small as a value, but actually they are very, very well and highly appreciated by the let's say the participants, the beneficiaries, the small institution, or even NGOs that are having their activity in the border region. So this is my satisfaction in my everyday job and my everyday activities, that we are supporting also these beneficiaries in the cross-border area, and for them, these allocations are a way to be more developed and to increase the cooperation and good relation between all of them in the border area.